Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Hello. Happy Friday.
Friday. This episode might come out on a Friday. You never know.
Yeah, it might actually coincide.
Yeah.
With a day that we're recording and the day it might actually come out.
So today, the Mary Tyler Moore Show episode was uploaded today.
Nice. One of my faves, obviously.
That was a fun episode to record. So what's been going on with you today?
Just went to the post office, got me a little Starbucks blackberry sage.
Nice.
If you hear some jingling in the background, we are dog sitting our god puppy Max. He has been with us since Tuesday and been keeping me company while I've been home this week, and he just had his little breakfast. We're waiting for his mama to come home, so I think he's ready. He likes being here, but I think like after 3 or 4 nights, he's
I'm ready to go home.
Yeah, he just hopped in my chair.
He definitely likes our backyard.
Yes, he does like sitting out by the pool.
He is a city dog. And his mom lives in a condo, and so I think he really likes the country life, but yeah, after a few days, he's like, I'm over this. I'm ready to go home.
I'm ready to go home and get in my little cave that he has over in his condo.
He's so cute.
But he loves like sitting by the pool with the wind. And then he likes rolling around in the grass, I think just to scratch. And so he is being all cute outside.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what's been going on with me. It's almost the weekend, and I'm one more quick April work trip next week to Alabama, and then I'm back for the rest of the month. And then I have one more trip to Florida in May, and I think my semester is almost done.
And just in case anybody's curious, the reason why I don't really ever talk about what's going on with me is because I work in a restaurant. I do the same thing every single day. So
I'm cooking.
It's more of the same for me every day. I think if something out of the ordinary happens, I'll talk about it. But if anyone's ever curious.
I was actually just wondering that. I was like, you always ask me about work and stuff. And mine changes kind of weekly, monthly. I mean, it's the same thing, but I'm in different places.
I'm either
all the
busy.
time.
I'm either busy or not busy. I mean, like that's what I have to talk about with work, unless something like dramatic happens. But that's usually like in our personal lives.
Yeah.
Or like something that happened. Yeah, like in our personal life. But yeah, so we are continuing in a month, and so we are in the era. Okay, so. We've been through childhood, what inspired you to become an adult. We went to college. Now we are in our post-college era of Anna's life.
Yes.
So this show didn't come out during that era, but this show reflects this era, I guess.
I mean, your first apartment, moving.
Yeah, and we'll kind of talk about like kind of the generational differences.
But that I think one of your questions is what drew me to the show. So we will talk about that, and I will tell you exactly what drew me to the show.
So we're doing a show that I didn't kind of realize was a very polarizing show. This is one of those shows that you either love it or you hate it. You either get it or you don't, and I didn't really know that. I didn't really know a lot about this show until I met you, and when I met you was during its final season. So it was just kind of like I was watching this final season to a show that I had no context of until I kind of went back and rewatched some of the first episodes, but I'll go back and rewatch episodes with you. It's a lot like Gilmore Girls, except a lot more interesting and a lot more relatable for me because it is millennial culture.
It's not about like Gilmore Girls.
No. I'm just saying
how you watch shows with me.
When usually when you'll have an episode of Gilmore Girls on, I couldn't be less interested in it. But with girls, they're not alike in any way, shape, or form. There is the millennial culture comparison, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So we got some stuff to talk about, and so Anna's going to do what she always does and give us some episode and series information.
All right, Girls, the pilot. Girls was an American comedy drama that aired on HBO from April 15th, 2012 to April 16th, 2017, like literally right when you moved in with me, for 6 seasons and a total of 62 episodes. The series was created by and starred Lena Dunham, and she was executive produced by Judd Apatow. The pilot was written and directed by Dunham. Girls centers around the lives of 4 young women living in New York City. Hannah, the central character, adjusts to life after graduating college and being financially cut off from her parents. The series is heavily based on Lena Dunham's life when she first moved to New York after graduating college. The main cast includes Lena Dunham as Hannah Horvath, an aspiring writer, Allison Williams as Marnie Michaels, Hannah's best friend, Jemima Kirk as Jessa Johansson, and Hannah's unpredictable friend, and
you just want to say your name,
and Shoshana's cousin, also Sosha Mamet as Shoshana Shapiro, Jess's naive cousin, so they're related on the show. And then I think 3 of them all went to Oberlin together. And then Adam Driver as Adam Sackler, Hannah's aloof friends with benefits.
That was the nicest word I could think of.
They're a couple at one point, but again, that's like...
Well, we're talking in the pilot.
Correct. Girls initially received praise from both critics and audiences for its painfully accurate portrayal of millennial culture while also being relatable to viewers of all ages with its several themes of becoming an adult. The series has a total of 19 nominations for Primetime Emmys, winning 2 of them. One for Outstanding Casting and the other for Peter Scolari, winning Outstanding Guest Actor for his portrayal of Hannah's father, Ted.
He's so good.
Tad.
He's so good in it.
I love him. And I love him with Andrew Rannells when they're together on screen. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the final season was met with a lot of criticism, specifically the series finale, which most fans found to be unnecessary compared to the penultimate episode of the series, which felt like a more fitting ending. It's often cited as one of the worst series finales of all time. Despite all of this, Girls has remained a cult classic and a guilty pleasure, and you can currently watch Girls on Max.
So how did you feel about the series finale? Because, like, when I was kind of, I always find it interesting, even when it's a show that I'm familiar with, anytime that I'm doing research and I'm writing up all these informations and looking up all this research, I'm always surprised to find certain aspects of it. And it seemed like everyone really enjoyed the final season until the series finale. That was when everyone kind of turned on the show. Kind of like what happens to a lot of shows when they have like maybe an inferior series finale, then all of a sudden this huge fan base kind of turns on the show. How did you feel about the series finale?
So, of course, I'm going to give some spoilers here, but it has to happen since you're asking me about it. Now, obviously, this has been a show that's been out for some time. So, the final season, we knew it was happening. We knew it was the final season. Yeah. And so I feel like they were trying to wrap things up. And at this point, it was a lot of things happening. For example, Shoshana wasn't really part of the friend group anymore, had gotten engaged, and really only Marnie and Jessa knew about it. She hadn't told Hannah. Throughout the season finale, Hannah finds out she's pregnant from a one weekend stand at a surfing camp with some guy. Adam and Jessa are now together as a couple, which has sort of triangulated that whole dynamic. I mean, Hannah's not pining away for Adam anymore. I mean, he was still part of her love career, her love life, in the sense of is there a girl code where you don't date your friends' exes or whatever? So there was that dynamic, because Jessa and Hannah had been close, had been very close. And even in one fight that Hannah and Jessa and Adam had, Jessa was like, she's like my best friend.
Yeah.
Like, I will always love her. But by the end, they still weren't talking. So you just were struggling with that because they had been close. So you were just like, so Adam did come between them.
Yeah.
And then there was the whole relationship with Marnie. And so you had mentioned that the episode before the actual finale was what a lot of people were like, that should have been the finale. And it was where like some of the things were, I wouldn't even say wrapped up. I mean, you were just kind of like, they just happened. And I can see how people wanted that to be the ending, but I get the series finale.
Right.
Because it, to me, really relates back to the very first episode in a bizarre way.
Okay.
So in the pilot, you'll talk about this. Obviously, it starts with Hannah's parents cutting her off. Mm-hmm. And in the series finale, Hannah has had her baby from her weekend stand from the surf guy. And she's having trouble getting him to latch, to breastfeed. And she's really struggling. She is like really rethinking her decisions. Marnie is still in her life and wanting to help and be a part of Hannah's life. But, you know, Hannah's struggling with that, wanting Marnie's help, but also wanting Marnie to like go out and be her own person too. Like, go have your music career, go have your art career. Like, it's, to me, a juxtaposition of that first episode that Hannah wanted to stay. And I'll use a very, you know, gender, you know, kind of, it's not a slur, I don't know what to call it, but like when people say you're like still on the tit, like when you can't get away from your parents or your mom.
Off the teat.
And that was the first episode, was like Hannah couldn't get off of her parents' teat. You know, like she just wanted them to keep paying for everything.
Yeah.
And then the series finale, Latching, was showing her child not being able to bond with her. And so at the time, I think I was mad about a lot of things that was happening.
I remember, because I didn't know what was going on.
Yes,
so I only
hated
had you.
The whole Shoshana thing, being secretly engaged. And, you know, she's like, when she confronts Hannah about it at the engagement party that Hannah wasn't invited to, but she shows up at, she's just like, you know, why should I have told you I was engaged? You didn't tell me you were pregnant. And I'm like, you know, like, I get it. It's like tit for tat, ha ha ha. Yeah. But I was just like, come on, y'all were friends.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not talk? And so but I can kind of see that too. I've, you know, not had, I don't want to use the word falling out, isn't correct, but you just grow apart from friends over time. And there's just, And then the whole Adam, Jessa, and Hannah situation, to me, also by the end was really making me upset, because I still don't even think Jessa and Adam belong together.
Right.
I mean, Jessa goes out for like a one-day stand at a bar and hooks up with a guy when Adam is out trying to figure out if he wants to be with Hannah and help raise the baby that she's pregnant with some other guy with.
I remember that episode.
That also all seemed very odd as well, although I do understand that's how Jessa copes with things, is by feeling loved by finding love from a stranger when she wasn't feeling loved by someone she cared about.
She's looking for validation.
Yes. Yeah. And so again, I get it, but then Adam and Hannah are like, okay, we don't belong together. Like, this was stupid, because they've had sex during this whole like episode. And then he goes back to back to Jessa, and Jessa's like, yeah, come on up.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I was just like, y'all all realized y'all have all had sex with like strangers, former partners, and you're all cool with it. And again, it's a show. I understand. But I found it really hard to be believable in that sense. Yeah. Like, I don't know. But anyway, I was more mad about the second to last episode happening, because I just was like, I actually over time appreciated the finale what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so just kind of backtrack just a little bit back to the beginning. Sorry,
Yes.
we jumped ahead to the final. That last.
We will come back because this is going to be one of our December shows.
Oh, definitely.
I want to break it down, and it might include the second to last episode because I feel
We
like,
can watch both.
like you said, a lot of people felt that should have been the finale, and I see it, but I also appreciate the real finale.
Because when we originally watched it, I didn't know the order. I knew that this was the final season, but I thought that was the series finale. And then you were like, no, there's one more episode. And I'm like, what else needs to be said? And I'm going to be completely honest, I don't fully remember the series finale. So definitely in December, we're definitely going to have to do that.
Yeah, because she has moved to like upstate New York.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of backtrack back to season one.
Back to season one, the pilot.
Back to the pilot. So this is another one of those shows where I always feel, not mean, I always feel like bad in a certain way when I'm just like, this doesn't seem like a show that you would like. Like I feel like I'm sounding snobby, or I'm sounding like
I'm snobby.
Right. I mean, like, and I don't mean it that way, because you and I love all types of shows. We really aren't that picky. If you and I aren't into a show, it's very clear, but it's also really easy for us to get into a show if everything is, if everything kind of goes right. There can be shows that we weren't, like Tulsa King, that we were not expecting to like so much.
Totally.
And which we continued watching episodes of that, and it's still it's such a good show. But then there are the shows where I'm like, I'm not going to say that you bag on millennials all the time because you married one, but there is a lot to be annoyed with when it comes to millennial culture. We are a very self-involved, narcissistic, entitled, and not to say that any other generation isn't the same way, but we have our own special, each generation kind of has their own special sauce, and we kind of have our own special sauce of being very entitled and being expected to kind of, I'm speaking as a millennial, we were kind of led to believe by our boomer parents that as long as you do these certain things, you're going to be happy and your life is going to work out.
Yes.
We found out very quickly that is not true.
Yes.
And that you have to find your own happiness. Now, there are the millennials that they're the millennials like me that had that realization and found our own happiness and content with what we have and finding happiness even though things didn't work out the way you planned. And then there are the millennials, which are extremely loud on social media, that really live in the past and really are just like, it was so much better during this time. It was so much better during this time. Today sucks. Buying a house sucks. Everything sucks. Like, very negative, very pessimistic. We're a very pessimistic generation.
Okay.
And for the life of me, because I watched the pilot by myself. You were out of town.
Yes.
I watched the pilot by myself, which I was kind of glad that I did. I was sitting here watching it by myself, and I'm like, how did Anna get into the show? Because I could barely get into the show, and they're all my age. So, like, just explain to me, what was it about this show? My really long roundabout way of asking.
I know, I was like, where's the question?
What was it about this show that drew you in?
Well,
other than the New York aspect.
Well, I mean, that wasn't necessarily it. But one, it was kind of, I remember it like coming on HBO. HBO was a channel I watched.
Yeah.
I think it came on Sundays nights. And so that was a night I was almost always home. And it was about girls like right after graduation living on their own. And I was like, okay. And then when the pilot opened and having her parents cut her off, and when her mom said, we have been footing your bill for 2 years, you need to get a job and not this like fake externship unpaid position that you've had. And then she's still asking for money and whatever, trying to tell them like why they should keep financing her post-grad career. I was hooked, because that was exactly who I was not.
Gotcha.
I have talked about it. I think I talked about it in Sex Lives of College Girls that I wanted to go away from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted independence. I think growing up until I was 18, obviously, while I was especially living under my parents' roof, and even through early days of college, particularly until my dad passed away,
Mm-hmm.
I was still somewhat under the foot of my parents as long as they were paying the bills.
Right.
They dictated my grades. They were the ones who gave me money. They had decided the summer after my freshman year that I needed to go and stay with my sister. She had just gotten divorced, and my parents felt like, it would be good if I went to visit her and stay with her for the summer. So
is that when you lived in Euless?
Yes, that was when I lived in
Shout
Texas.
out to Nick.
Yes, that was when I lived in Euless. And again, I had fun that summer, but again, it wasn't my choice. My parents were like, you need to go and do this and help your sister. And so the thought of being post-grad, still being financially dependent on my parents, was a nightmare to me.
Yeah.
I so wanted my independence. I so wanted a job, my career, a paycheck of my own, to say it was my own, that I was making my own decisions because I was making my own decisions, not because my mom told me to do something or my dad told me to do something. The thought of I was watching this scene and going, oh my God, like, what are you doing? And I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And I had to keep watching. It really was.
Can see that. Yeah.
Also because I do teach a lot of millennials. I am obviously in my mid 50s, now going on towards the end of my 50s, and a lot of the students that I teach are now, Gen Alpha? So
Gen Z.
I think we're in Alpha now.
Are we in Alpha now?
So we have Alphas, we have Gen Z. I've taught many millennials. I've taught your sister.
Yeah.
So I have had my career through all of these generations. So I also felt it would be somewhat insight into the generation and how they act. Which it's really true. It's just kind of like you said, if I think and again, my parents were of the same mindset, but in a different way. Like, if you go to college, you'll get a job and you'll be able to pay your bills and you'll be able to be on your own. And I will also say my mom never ever proclaimed that life would be easy. Right. In fact, she always told us it would be hard and we had to work hard. But I think there were a lot in this, like, recent generations where they are the, good job generation. Yeah. You're perfect. You can do no wrong. Always coming to the defense, particularly against teachers, administration, college professors. And I think it's been tough for the newer generations because they have this idealistic view of how the world should be, and when it's not, they struggle. Right. And I saw there was an article recently where it said that the parents of today's generations try to do so much of protecting their kids from online dangers and scary things. They didn't prepare them enough for the real world. Right. And I really see that. And I feel like there are a lot of kids who aren't able to go out into the real world and be okay on their own. Yeah. And I'm not saying like not have the support of their parents. Of course. I mean, my mom, always helped me. She was here gardening, cleaning, whatever. But I feel like my mom also gave me the skills and the abilities to do all of the things all on my own as well. And I do feel like a lot of this generation struggle in that way. Yeah.
I would agree. I work with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and there's this really there's just this really kind of funny mentality where one of our bussers who is in high school, and he's not bad at his job. He's just, he's okay at it. It took him a little bit. He used to call out a lot, and he used to have people cover his shifts a lot. And then it was maybe like a week or two of him like improving and being consistent. And he went up to me and was like, do you think Kevin would give me a raise? And I just flat out was like, no. I was just flat out like,
What?
no. He was just like, oh, well, I've been working here for X amount of months. And I'm just like, in my mind, I didn't say this. In my mind, I'm like, I know what your dad told you, that every 6 months you're supposed to get a raise because that's how it works in like corporate jobs.
Right, exactly, like real
But we work in a restaurant. That's not how it works.
And not that what you're not doing is professional.
Right. I wasn't insulted by his question. Yes. I was just like, I told him, I was just like, here you don't get a raise by how many months you've been here. You get a raise when you earn one.
Yes.
And I was kind of flat out told him, I was just like, look, man, I was like, you've been inconsistent. You've been doing good lately. But like, if you show us consistently over the next few months that like you're, good at your job, what you're doing right now, you'll get a raise. And I think since then he's gotten one. So, it's not, and I do, as much as I want to make fun of the younger kids, it really is the parents that grew up with this very naive mentality of there's only one way that the world works, and that's how they were taught. That's how I was raised. And I think that's where a lot of the pessimism from my generation comes from, because we feel like we were lied to. And I feel like these younger generations are kind of in the same way, but there's just a little bit more entitlement and a little bit more of unrealistic expectations. I feel like millennials now are like, it's unrealistic expectations because they're so negative about it, but like the younger generations have this unrealistic positive outlook on things. It's really a bizarre kind of dynamic to work with.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to see the differences because, we were all raised differently by different generations of parents, because a lot of these younger kids are being raised by people from my generation. So it's like, well, what are you teaching your kids? Why are you teaching them the same things that our parents taught us, which wasn't true? It's just a clusterfuck. But I mean, like, it's just a cluster.
And I readily admit, I do not have my own child. I have Maddie, my stepdaughter, and I have always.
She's your direct lineage.
Her
words exactly.
Her words exactly on the ship. I am her direct lineage. So thank you, Maddie, for that. But I always joke because I know that there are a lot of times when I diss on kids and, I know my friends with kids like look at me and they're like, well, you're not a mom, you're not a parent. And I'm like, you don't have to tell me. I know that.
Right.
And I also readily admit, I don't know if I would have raised like the next, billionaire or the next serial killer or someone in between. I know.
Most likely somewhere in between.
Yeah. I could see myself wanting to be the cool mom, but also instilling a lot of the things that my mom did for us. Like, I have been working since the age of 15. I have always, my mom was like, our job is here to make sure you're clothed, fed, and educated. And that's really our job. Yeah. And hopefully, they, made me go to church and stuff like that and volunteer in the community. But anything extra that I wanted, I had to pay for. Yeah. And so those were a lot of the things that I knew going into college, and especially coming out, and especially because my dad had passed away and my mom didn't work. So I knew there was no coffers of money to be had had I not had a job when I graduated. So I knew I had to work. So again, I know everybody is different. Everyone wants to raise their kids differently, and whatever they're doing is right for them, and go you. So, but the pilot and Hannah's, that scene with her parents, and she's just like trying to bargain with them. And when she's just like, okay, you give me for the next 2 years $1,100 each month so that I can work on my book, which she still hasn't done in the 2 years since she's graduated. And her mom is like, you don't know anything about our finances. And I thought that was really funny. Yeah. Because I never knew how much my dad made.
Right. Same.
I never knew.
Yeah.
We never. I'm going to say this very loosely. Like, we never wanted for anything. Granted, did I want a car when I turned 16?
Right.
Of course. I knew I wasn't going to get one because my brother and my sister didn't get one.
Right.
My parents didn't have the money for that.
Right.
If we wanted one, we had to go and get a job and buy one, which, I mean, in the 80s was not possible. But that whole scene, I was just laughing like, oh my God, how dare you, like, challenge your parents about their finances. Like, that would have never crossed my mind. I will say about the only thing I ever did was when I decided to get my master's. My mom was still claiming me on her taxes because she could.
Yeah.
And I could not apply for financial aid unless I got her signature. And because she was still claiming me, I couldn't do financial aid on my own. And I finally, I did have to go to battle with her. And I had to say, like, you need to stop claiming me because she was no longer financially supporting me. I was working on my own. And I actually think my sister kind of came to my side on it as well. And my sister was like, if you're not going to pay for her to go to school, then you have to let her get financial aid. And so my mom finally like conceded and stopped claiming me on her taxes. But that was about the only time I ever really went to battle with my mom over something about money.
But it was for you to get financial independence. It was like the exact opposite of what is going on with Hannah.
Exactly. And my mom was really only doing it because that was what she had done. And I don't remember back in, the early 90s, like how old you could be to still claim your kids.
Like 25.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it probably only would have been a couple more years because this was like 1992. I was 23 at the time. So, my mom was obviously on the cusp of not being able to claim me anymore anyway. So she was finally like, fine.
Yeah.
But like you said, I was fighting for my independence to get from under that control.
Whereas Hannah's fighting for dependence.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
to continue dependence.
I don't want to be on my own yet. I can't be on my own. And that to me was just crazy. And that is why I watched.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So what was life? You talked about just now, a little bit, very little bit, but like what was, and we talked a smidge about it on the Mary Tyler Moore episode, but what was life for you after college? And I'm not talking about when you were still living on, like, no more campus living.
Correct. I moved into a townhouse.
Yeah. So what was life for you after you graduated college?
So I went to graduate school to get a master's in secondary education, and I was working as a graduate assistant for the spirit group. So like for the cheerleaders, the dance line. So I would drive the university van to away games or work on the football games or basketball games. But then in the second year of grad school, I was taking a class with a professor who was also the headmaster at one of the local private schools. And he was talking in class about something, and he was like, yeah, I just got this new job and I'm looking for teachers. And I think he was like, I don't know how it came about truly. I don't remember. But he had mentioned he was looking for a Spanish teacher, and my undergrad bachelor's was in Spanish and journalism. And I was like, oh, and in Louisiana, if you have a degree, you can teach without your teaching certificate.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's still that way now, but in the early 90s, you could. And so I hadn't taken the national teacher's exam yet. I was waiting until I finished my master's to do it.
Gotcha.
And so I went up to him and I was like, hey, I was a Spanish major in undergrad. And I was like, and I know that there's this thing in Louisiana that you don't have to have the teaching certificate to teach as long as you have a bachelor's. So he actually researched it and then came back to class and was like, come and interview and like, let's see. And so that was the start of my teaching career. And so I was doing my teaching and doing like a class or something at night during that last year. But my, like, I will call it student teaching, but I was actually being paid.
Yeah.
My first teaching job, I was paid $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month, which I thought I was rich. And that is also because I never knew how much my dad made.
Gotcha.
My dad probably only made about $30,000 a year in the 70s and 80s. But again, I never knew what he made. I had no concept of what his salary was. And so I had gotten this job, and then my friend, my roommate, Pam, who had been my roommate in the sorority dorm, we decided to get a townhouse in Monroe, and it was on a street called Jennifer Lane. And we got this townhouse. It was 2 stories, had the sunken living room. I was like, my Three's Company, Mary Tyler Moore dreams were coming true. I had it upstairs, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, kitchen, dining. It had like a little back patio. We were like living the life in Monroe, Louisiana. And she got a teaching job. I think her first job was either first grade or kindergarten. She was elementary. I was high school. And so that was like my first teaching job. I started and I was the new Spanish teacher. And I remember when Pam and I one other thing that I love currently about social media is seeing people decorate their classrooms, like, teachers and stuff. I thought I was being creative. Like, we would go to garage sales and I would get magazines of like National Geographics and pull out the maps. And I had all like the Latin American countries all over my walls. And I would look for books at book fairs to fill my bookshelves. And I'm trying to think of like one of the other crazy things, like anything with like chili peppers or flags. And so, like, it was so fun to decorate. And, again, it was a lot of money that was out of my own pocket. Like, we did not have, like, no one gave us money to decorate our classrooms. And so I also, from my travels and from my dad's travels, and my parents were both from Latin American countries, I got stuff from my house and brought it to my classroom. And I'll never forget, like, some of my students told me later that the Spanish teacher before me had been really bad. Like, he had, like, that's why he was gone. It was because he was bad. He wasn't teaching. He wasn't engaging. And I remember they had told me that when they walked into my classroom, and I didn't think my classroom was anything super fancy. I mean, I'm telling you, it was like National Geographic maps, and I had maybe decorated the bulletin board and stuff. But they said they walked in and they were like, oh my God, we have a real teacher. Like, she decorated her classroom, because he had done nothing. And so, this was the first job, and we were paying rent. Our rent was $398, because I remember I never wrote a rent check that was more than $200.
Yeah.
And that's like, I mean, so I still had, like, minus taxes and stuff, like $500 or $600. And again, back then we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have an internet bill. I mean, probably cable was our most expensive thing, and a landline, and maybe, like the regular utilities and stuff. But I want to say like water and gas and maybe even electricity was included in our rent. So like we did not even have those utility bills. So making $1,000 a month, sounds like I should have been on like food stamps or something. And there's, but I was fine. I was able to pay all my bills. So it was fun. It was fun decorating and doing all of those things on our own, and being able to say this was our apartment and the place that we lived. And it was fun doing that. So that's, I think, also why when I saw the pilot and watched the pilot, I was just like, I so wasn't that person. Yeah. Like, that is just not who I was. Let me see who she is and why is she this way. Yeah. So that was kind of my first job, first apartment after college, and just parties and still a little bit of fun because I was still in a college town. So a lot of people were still around.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this show kind of has been known, we talked about it earlier, is kind of known for its portrayal of like the millennial culture, and maybe the first of its kind to kind of exist. Do you think that this is an accurate portrayal of millennial culture, or do you find it, well, I don't know how you would find it insulting because you're not a millennial, but do you think it's an accurate portrayal of millennial culture?
I'm not sure, because I feel like it's heightened. It's obviously somewhat of an exaggerated version of it, because all four of the girls are very narcissistic in different ways. Hannah is obviously like cannot think of anyone but herself, and that is throughout the series. Is she everyone calls her out on it, like all the time. And that's what's also crazy to me is like, but you choose to remain friends with her even though she could probably give a shit about you. Like, and she really, I mean, and she says it like when, like the episode when she's breaking up with Fran, the guy, Jake Lacey, and she's just like, you don't even like me. Like, why are you here with me? And he's like, I don't like you, but I love you. You know, and you're like, what? You know, but it's crazy. So I do and I don't, because obviously I don't know if I've ever met anyone like Hannah. I mean, maybe I have and I just don't know it. I don't know their inner workings of everyone's lives. But I do think that there are a lot of kids who rely on their parents or stay home too long. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, how you raise your kids and the relationships you want with them, you know, that's definitely your relationship. What I have to say about it obviously does not matter. But again, I go back to that quote where, you know, sometimes parents have tried to protect them from like all the like sort of non-really relatable scary things in life, but haven't really prepared them for the real things in life. You're going to be turned down from a job. You're going to be broken up with. You're going to get fired. You are going to get a bad grade in school. You are going to, like, one of the common things that I hear is, I don't like who I work with. And I'm like, 90% of the time you don't like who you work with. I mean, like, and so like those are the ones that I think are really kind of interesting, is when we hear like the kids go like, oh my God, like I just want to change jobs because I don't like this person. I'm like, do you think you're going to like the other people that you meet in your job? So I don't know. I think it's probably some version of some millennials that are out there and some friend group of girls. But again, obviously it was written in Lena Dunham's voice. It's about her life somewhat from when she moved to New York, and she's a very outspoken person. And I have a feeling that there are parts of Hannah that are Lena.
Well, you know, Lena Dunham knew Jemima Kirk. So Lena Dunham is from New York, but she actually did go to Oberlin in real life. But she grew up going to school with Jemima Kirk, who plays Jessa. And that was like her first, like, and Jessa is a heightened version of Jemima, because she was kind of a part of this very wealthy family where it's like you would call her house, be like, oh, Jemima's in the Caymans Bali right now. And like that was kind of her life, which I just found really interesting. But anyway, that is off topic. I agree with what you're saying. From what I have not watched the show in its entirety. I still have not watched the Donald Glover episode, so I can't believe that I haven't yet. I totally forgot that he was on that show. But I the only gripe that I kind of have is the show not kind of portraying positive aspects of the not youth, because they weren't the young culture at the time. I feel like it was mostly just most of the episodes that I've watched with you are just kind of like a downer, and they're kind of just very kind of negative and depressing a lot of the times. And not to say that life is all, you know, life is not like a bowl of cherries, you know. It's life is complicated, and there is no black and white. It's all, we live in just different shades of gray, and that's not a sex reference. And but but yeah, I would have liked to have seen a more positive, because there are positive aspects that millennials have, and there are millennials out there who do work hard and are financially independent.
Yeah.
I feel like millennials were a really interesting generation. There's me being a narcissistic millennial, but like, I think we're a really interesting generation because there does seem to be this huge divide in our generation where it's like you have this one half that's hardworking, resourceful, adaptable, something that I consider myself to be. And then people who are exactly my age who are narcissistic, entitled, they're impatient with I've been working here for X amount of years, I deserve this promotion. And it's like, no, your work is the reflection, how hard you work. Well, you're always late. Yeah, well, like there's the but, like there's always an excuse. And so I would have liked to have just seen more positivity, but I understand that probably wasn't the point of the show. Because life is messy, and I think that was the point of the show. Not the entire point of the show, but that was like what the show was trying to say, is that life is messy, life is not easy, life does not hand you any breaks. Like you have to, earn what you have to earn what you have. You can't just be expected to be handed to you. But yeah, just that's really my only gripe, is that I wish it would have been a little bit more positive.
Yeah, because I'm really trying to think of like any of the episodes where I'm like, wow, that was like really amazing and something good. I mean, about the only one I can think of was when Andrew Rannells tries out for that, that Broadway show, and he gets it.
Yeah.
That's almost at the end of the series, though.
Yeah.
I love him, but yeah, a lot of them are about struggle and strife, and them struggling with the struggle and the strife. So yeah.
All right, ready to get into this pilot summary?
Let's do it.
We got 1 page of pilot summary.
Wow! Oh my gosh!
I mean,
it was a short episode.
It was a short episode.
Not too much happens.
You're introduced to everyone. You're introduced to all the characters. You're kind of set up for. I mean, it's a good example of a pilot. It's just when it's 30 minutes, it just doesn't take that long, and also, it's not that much happens. This is a very Seinfeld-esque show where it's a lot of a show about nothing. It's just a show about lives.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard.
It's very capsulated like that.
So it wasn't difficult to come up with a plot summary, but it was definitely like I stretched it out as much as I could without being overly specific.
I might make some commentary in between.
Feel free. Okay. Girls pilot summary. While eating dinner at a restaurant, Hannah, is it Horvath? Okay. Like a whorebath, haha. Hannah Horvath finds out that her professor parents, who are played by Peter Scolari and Becky Ann Baker, who I love both of them very much. Becky Ann Baker played the mom on Freaks and Geeks. She's also married to Dylan Baker, who is hands down one of the greatest character actors of all time.
I love him.
He's the best. Trick or Treat, if y'all haven't seen it, please go watch it. Or Hunters, please go watch it.
Bosom Buddies, Peter Scolari.
Oh, yeah. Hannah Horvath finds out that her professor parents are cutting her off financially, even though she is working an unpaid internship. She graduated from college 2 years prior, and her parents believe that her internship will turn into a paying job, and her roommate / best friend, Marnie Michaels, tells her that she should demand a full-time position. When Hannah asks her boss to hire her full-time, he says that it's such a shame to lose her, and tells her that her lack of Photoshop knowledge makes her unhireable at the agency. I didn't fully get that. So was it just...
I think she was working at like a marketing, editing place or something. But that to me also goes to show like how she hadn't learned anything in 2 years at this internship that she was doing. I think she was just very comfortable living with her parents paying her way and her like going to this doop like unpaid internship, quote unquote job.
Right.
And not learning anything.
I couldn't imagine.
Working on her book.
I couldn't imagine. I mean, I think it's just because I have also just been financially independent for such a long time. The idea of having a job and not getting paid.
Oh, that too.
Sounds like I know people do it all the time, and they do it to,
get experience
and to possibly, most of them do it when they're in college, when maybe they're not worried about it. And
to get experience and to network.
But to graduate college and continue to have an unpaid internship is bananas. I would rather, and I work in the food industry, so this isn't an insult, I'd rather just go work at McDonald's. I would just rather, at least I'm getting paid. You know what I mean? Like I said, I work in food industry. I'd go work at McDonald's right now if George has fired me, which they're never going to fire me.
I hope not. We love you, Kevin.
With no job, Hannah seeks comfort from her bang buddy, Adam, who, quote unquote, comforts her by having unpleasant sex with her and tricking her into thinking he used a condom. That was a really uncomfortable scene to watch. I was sitting there just kind of just being like, so nothing. It's just someone that is just it's like a downward spiral. It's just like she hates her job. She's not getting paid. She hates this guy that she's continuously having sex with. It just seems like I
don't know if she hates him, but she doesn't know where their relationship is other than they're just, bang buddies. However, one of the things I was going to say was, I don't think it's ever divulged throughout the series, and anyone who's listening to this, and you can tell me I'm wrong, I don't think it's ever divulged how they ever met to become bang buddies.
I was actually going to ask you that earlier.
Because this was, I think, before the advent of dating apps. It might have been in MySpace chat or AOL chat. I mean, there were lots of chat apps and chat abilities on the internet. So maybe that's how they met. But I don't think they ever discussed how Adam and Hannah met to become friends with benefits.
Okay.
So I think she was at a point where, again, lots of girls, I probably have done it myself, where you just are hooking up with someone because it's comfortable in the sense of them and you've already done it. So why not just keep doing it? And I think you can tell from her end that she sort of identifies the sex that they're having with, I like him.
Gotcha.
And he's like, you're just one of the other girls that I'm having sex with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Hannah's old friend, Jessa Johansson, is in town after traveling the world, and she is staying with her naive cousin, Shoshana Shapiro, a virgin obsessed with Sex in the City. While Hannah is excited to see Jessa, Marnie dreads it, referring to a time when Jessa slept with another girl's boyfriend.
Yep, that's a foreshadowing.
So this is interesting. It didn't strike me that all of the girl characters have alliteration names. It's JJ, Shoshana Shapiro. I never noticed that.
Yeah. And Marnie is actually even funnier. Her middle name is Marie, which is just Marnie without the N. And she makes fun of it later. Yeah,
funny.
Her name is Marnie Marie Michaels. So, yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Marnie Michaels is having problems of her own. Her boyfriend is clingy and annoying. And even though he's sweet to her, she can't stand when he touches her. And she finds his friends obnoxious. When everyone gets together to throw a dinner party for Jessa, Jessa and Hannah are both late. Jessa proceeds to annoy Marnie, and Hannah drinks opium tea, as one does.
As one does.
Drunk history.
Yes.
While high on opium, Hannah visits her parents in their hotel room and asks them for $1,100 a month, just like you were talking about, as well as demanding they read her very short book of memoirs, which she has yet to publish. They seem relatively unimpressed with her book, and they outright refuse to give her any money. When Hannah passes out, they let her stay in the room overnight. The next morning, her parents have gone. She tries to order room service, and they've already checked out. A continuation of the entitlement.
Well, I love how she's like, and they've totally checked out. We can't charge anything else. She's still trying to squeeze that last breakfast on room service out of them. It was so interesting.
They have left $20 for Hannah and $20 for the cleaning lady on the nightstand. Hannah takes both $20 bills and leaves, and that's the end of the episode. $20 to tip the cleaning lady.
I know, dang. I feel cheap.
Yeah,
I don't leave that much when I travel.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say that this is a show that I would continue watching. I would only watch it. This is one of those, if you're watching an episode, I'll watch it with you. And I am one to ask questions, even if I'm not totally invested into a show. I just like knowing things. And I am one of those. I am a question asker when we watch stuff. But I would recommend it. I would just say watch the pilot. And if you're into the pilot, obviously keep watching. If you're not into the pilot, maybe watch a couple more episodes to see if you can get into it. But if you're not sold by episode 2 or 3, you're probably not going to like this show. So, yes. I mean, like, it is kind of one of those shows. The more and more we talk about it, it really is one of those shows you're either going to love it or you're going to
It is. And
hate it.
It was also extremely controversial because a lot of the nudity that was in it later throughout the series, it was a big part of the zeitgeist of discussion of whether or not the nudity was necessary or if it was just
I think the
just
show,
to be naked.
I think
the show to make people talk about it.
I think the show was trying to have a body positive message because Lena Dunham looks like the average American girl.
Yes.
And she was probably nude the most out of everyone on the show.
Probably the only one.
And, and I liked that. I don't mean this in a perverted way. I mean, I liked that they did that because this, most of the time when you watch a sex scene on TV or in a movie, you have a thin, hot, actress that has, perfect boobs and the perfect lighting and, it's slow-mo and sexy and sensual. And you and I are like, this is not how sexy. You and I always laugh at that. Whereas I feel like girls, it's like sex can, not always, obviously, but sex can be awkward and sex isn't in like real life sex isn't something that you want to watch.
It's not perfectly orchestrated every time.
It's not like a porno where the girl is, making noise the whole time and there's all these like sexy and there are all these different positions and it's this, I guess sexy music playing in the background, but I mean like it's, sex. I feel like they did a really good job of portraying like, no, this is kind of what sex is like in real life. Like it's sweaty. It's
even the sex scene that she has with Adam in this episode is very awkward.
Yeah.
She's very much asking questions like where does she want, where does he want her to be and position herself? And it's still very, very awkward. Yeah. She's not very confident. And I feel like a lot of the nudity was intended to try to make women feel confident with their bodies. Like, you can see me. And let me tell you, Lena Dunham is not, at the time was not overweight. I mean, not that she's overweight now. She's had health issues over the recent years, but she was very out there. And I mean, it was funny. She would be like, I just want to lose these last 2 pounds. And you were just like, oh my gosh, like those 2 pounds are fine. But that's how women are. It's like, we want to lose this like little neck thing or this like wrinkle on our forehead. And I think she definitely tried to bring body positivity and people took it the wrong way because I'm like, okay, well, we are naked when we have sex. I'll joke about like Sex in the City. You never saw Sarah Jessica Parker because she has a no nudity clause in her contracts ever have sex with any of the guys that she dated unless she had a bra on. And I'm like, I don't know what woman has sex with a bra on. I mean, maybe some like little cute nighty negligee skimpy thing, but generally I was like, who has sex with a bra on? But I like how Lena Dunham tried to make it seem realistic.
I liked it too. Yeah. All right, you think that wraps up this one?
I think it does.
All right, that wraps up this episode. Thanks for tuning in. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can also publish us. You can also follow us on Instagram at We Judge Pilot Pod. We're also on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. What you got?
Not too many. Any of the girl emojis to represent all 4 of the girls, the Statue of Liberty or the apple for New York. the parents, the dinner plate, the tea, the money emoji because she keeps asking about money, the book emoji for her book, the hotel, the bed because she wakes up in bed and they're gone, and then the phone because she tries to dial room service at the end. All right, well, we are going to head out, but thanks for listening, but we'll talk to you. Let me start over. All right, well, we are going to head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.